Hello and welcome to Missionary Talks by Marcy Fenn. Today we're going to do Transitions Part 1. Transitions Part 1. If you haven't already done so, make sure that you watch the introduction and that you have the handouts ready for this session. When we talk about transitions, what we're going to go over in these two parts is we're going to go over the definition. We're going to do a stress inventory to see where you are on the readjustment rating scale. We're going to look at how different people handle stress and how your roles, responsibilities, and relationships, a comparison of those, how have they changed from before you transitioned to now. And we're going to go over the transition experience chart and the different stages that you go through, how to leave well, and to look at how did your goodbyes go well. Those are the things that we're going to cover. Transition is all about change. So anytime you experience change in your life, such as changing jobs, taking on a new role in a ministry, but then when I gave the class to people that had been in a foreign country for more than a year, they said this talk is good for anybody, especially for the times that you go in and out of countries. So, for example, leaving the foreign country and going back to your home country, and then when you have to re-enter into your foreign field. So a lot of my examples and things will be based for missionaries, but they can be used for any type of transition. For kids going to college, you can use transition things for anybody going to a foreign exchange student program. You can use transitions for switching jobs, moving to another state, or moving to another country. So that's what we're talking about. For me, my transitions were going from college, from high school to college, and that was from New Hampshire to New York. So that was a big transition. Another transition was when my husband and I moved from New York to Texas. We lived in Texas for 3 years, but we moved 4 times in those years. So, and I think in that time, my husband probably had a couple different jobs as well. Then we moved back to Connecticut, where we lived in 2 different towns over the course of 7 years. And then when we felt like we were supposed to go to Honduras full time, we moved to Honduras, and we started off in Gemelangila for about 3 months, moved to Zambrano for about 3 years, and now we're in Santa Lucia for about 2.5 to 3 years. During that time, many transitions took place as far as what our roles were, what we were doing, what kind of work we were doing. And so I really wished I had this information on transitions and been able to know how to deal with the change, because I can definitely identify with some of the different emotions or different things or different stress levels that you go through when that is happening. So I hope that this is able to help you if it's within your first year, or as you travel back and forth, or you know somebody that will be transitioning, even one of your children, that this material will be able to help you to help them or help yourself transition better, make that readjustment. One of the saddest stories that I heard was about a missionary that has been in Honduras for 10 years. And when she got off the plane, she just crashed. She had some problem with reentry. Not only that, but when she had a problem with reentry, her dog died. So it added extra stress onto an already stressful situation. There were changes happening in her home and a couple of kids left, and it was just all this stuff at once. And the saddest part of the story is that somebody said to her, "You've been there for 10 years. You should have this by now." Just because you've been in a foreign country and in a certain situation for many years doesn't mean that when you go through change, you're just all of a sudden going to be able to deal with it. And I think a lie that we tell to ourselves is that we got this. You know, we're able to transition back into our home country. We're able to transition into our foreign country. After all, we've been doing it for this many years or that many years. And so just know that some of the emotions, some of the things, people aren't going to understand. But there is material out there on this stuff. You can type in transition curve on or chart on Google, and you're going to end up with lots and lots of information. So it's interesting that lots of other people use this information for foreign exchange students or for business, but the missionary world has seemed to miss a lot of this information. So I heard about a missionary who was giving these talks. She'd done them for years with embassy workers that are new coming into the country, as well as teachers at a school, new teachers. And so I asked if I could sit on the talks, and so that is where this information came from. Years of her putting together different information for people to help them transition that first year. Because what happens is if a missionary or a business person or a volunteer or staff or a teacher come in and they don't have a good transition, well, they're going to want to leave. Now we know with going to another country, you're also going to have the added cultural adjustment on there. So we want to try to give people the most amount of information to create sustainability so that they know what's happening to them during that transition. What's going on? Why do I feel this way? So the very first thing we're going to do is a social readjustment rating scale. The social readjustment rating scale. And if you look on your handout, it says that this is a readjustment rating scale, and it will give you the information of where this resource comes from. But each event that you're thinking about when you're reading through all of these life events, what you're looking for is first, has this taken place in the last 12 months? And then you're going to look at the units to the right, and that is how much points or credit or value is put on this event happening in your life. So for example, the death of a spouse is 100 units. Divorce is 73 units. Marital separation is 65 units. So as you go through the list, you're going to circle the units for each thing that you've experienced within the last 12 months. At the end, you're going to total up the life units, total up a number. And you will see on the bottom, it will show a percentage and a scale of your scoring. So your susceptibility to stress. And so what I want you to do, if you're doing this as a group, is take the time to read through it, circle the units, have everybody add up their units, and then go around the room and share what people's number is. So you're going to say how many people had 150 life units or more, how many had 150 to 299, how many had over 300. And so you're going to go through each of those and find out where everybody is in the group, and then you'll have 5 seconds to pause the video and then turn it on when you are done. So you should have just completed the social readjustment rating scale. And if you had 0 to 150, that indicates a 30% chance, 150 to 299, a 50% chance, and over 300 indicates an 80% chance of suffering from stress. So even to the point where you would develop a stress-related illness. We know that a lot of sickness disease is related to, connected to stress. And so this kind of breaks it down to show you why, that they put different values or units on different events that happen in your life that cause more stress or put you under stress. What's important to note is that for some people going to a foreign country or starting to teach somewhere, it would be the same for any college student that's leaving campus and is now getting a new job. A lot of these things are the same. They're going to be relocating, they're going to be getting a new apartment, they're going to be getting a new job. So a lot of that is the same level of stress they would be experiencing in their home country, regardless if they move to another country. But what's interesting is how all of these different events affect you, and then you can imagine these plus your cultural stresses. So this is not, giving you a value of how much stress you're under based on being in another country or dealing with another culture. This is just the stress level or the percent before any of that, just to show you what your susceptibility is. And why it's good to share with other people in a group what your level is, especially for a group of new teachers that will be interacting and seeing each other all the time, is so that you can cut each other some slack and give each other some space. And really that's what happens. Even if you go to another country and work with other people or go into another town, you don't know what of these life events people have been experiencing, or for missionaries, you don't know what different people's stress level is. So sometimes it's good just to recognize that people are going through stuff and they're responding to stuff, and not to take things personally because maybe there's added stress in their life. There was a family that had said, "Oh, we're really great at this transition stuff. We've done it over and over and over again." And they were in the class, but maybe they weren't listening as intently because they've done this, they've got this. But the difference between this move in their life is that the wife's mother had just died before this transition. And in that, she wasn't able to go to and say goodbye to a lot of people because she was mourning. And she was like, "I just can't go to another event. I just can't face people again." So even though you may have done transition or experienced change over and over and over again, there's different times in your life where you'll have a different percent of stress. You'll have different events going on, and they all affect that transition. They all affect that change in your life. So what happens is we should be just sensitive to other missionaries and realize what people are going through. Sometimes you don't understand what's going on inside of you, and that's what makes you want to give up and leave, but don't give up and leave. So some teachers have been known to, they'll go home for a holiday or for a wedding, and they just won't come back to the job in the foreign country. And what that shows is that there was something with the transition, something didn't go right, or they weren't adjusting well. And when they had that opportunity to leave, even though it was just for a normal event, a wedding or a holiday, they don't come back. And I've seen teachers at other places that they just, after half of the year, can't handle it and they move back. So we want to provide a way that missionaries or staff or people working in another country can stay longer for sustainability, to get people to transition well and stay where they are well. Missionaries and workers and volunteers can use whatever excuses they want, but stress and transition needs to be worked through. And so when a missionary or a person is returning from their home country into the States, or from their states into the country, re-entry into their home country, or re-entry back into their foreign country, the external surroundings of the culture might be similar, but the phases of transition don't go away, along with the feelings. So you're going to be going through this, and the transition experience cycle, it will repeat itself. So hopefully you'll be able to locate not only where you are right now, but you'll be able to reference it in the future for when you have other transitions, or you are going back to your home country or back to your foreign country. How can you mentally, physically prepare for these transitions and these changes? The second activity that we're going to do is called roles, responsibilities, and roles, responsibilities, and relationship comparison. So what you're going to do with this activity is you're going to take time to think back to what life was within the last 11 months. So 11 months ago, what was your life like? Where were your roles and responsibilities last year? How were you doing with those roles and responsibilities? And what was your network of relationships with like? So you're going to briefly describe your situation as far as your roles, responsibilities, and relationships and feelings about a year ago. And then the other question under letter C is, how is my situation now? So now that you've transitioned and you have this change, your roles, responsibilities, and relationships, how are they different from what they were then? So you're going to take a minute to go over that. And at this time, if you have a group, you're going to have each one share. So you're going to go around and have them go through A, B, and C and share with the group. And so that's going to take some time to go around and share. And then when you're done with that, you can put the tape back on. Okay, so I hope that you were able to share not only what your roles, responsibilities, and relationships were in the comparison, but also your name, how long you've been here, and what your ministry is, so that you can get to know each other and you know what you're going through, and have more understanding of each other as well. So I'm sure that just by going through this, you've realized that you've had many different transitions or changes throughout your life. From high school to college to living on your own, moving and changing jobs. And then if you've come to a foreign country, as a missionary. And there might even be other transitions within your time in that different country. For example, I've seen people come down and then they changed who they were working with, or somebody leaves the country and then they end up changing or taking over and doing a ministry, or sometimes they end up doing something they didn't even think they were coming down for. And I basically see three different types of missionaries. I see missionaries that come down and they work on their own independently. I see missionaries that come down and they work alongside somebody for about a year, and then God shows them what direction they want to go. So they go through the transition and learning the culture that first year and learning different things. God placed a ministry on their heart, and then they find themselves in a transition again. And then you find missionaries that come down and they stay with the ministry and they're going to work with that ministry forever. But that doesn't mean that their roles or responsibilities might not change during that time. And so a lot of times people that were working a secular job in the States and then they come down to do missionary work, it's a big transition for them. And even people that were, let's say, a youth pastor in the States and are coming to work with youth here, they find that there is a transition. The roles, the responsibilities, it doesn't look like what it looked like before. And so just being able to recognize that, oh, a year ago, this is what I was doing, and look what I'm doing now. And maybe I don't have the friends or the people I thought I was going to have. Maybe I don't have that network. I don't have anybody to go out and eat lunch with. I don't have a staff that we pray to, and get together with in the morning. And now I go from having this huge network of family and friends to nothing. I'm starting all over again. It's important to identify that because that's affecting you. That plus the stresses that we located. So this is the end of Transition Talk Part 1. And I know that it varies on the time depending on how long you take for the activities. So at this time, you can take a break. You can take a 15-minute break or longer than that. Some groups, they have just coffee and a snack. Other groups, they have a meal together. So that is up to you how long you want to do that. And then you will need to have Transition Part 2 ready for the second half.